TitleMatchNetwork.com.
What about Paul Bosch? How did that come about?
Paul Boesch was the promoter in Houston, Texas, and excellent promoter, but a very difficult guy. I can't say I had the greatest relationship with him in the world, but I had decent relationship. My problem was Fritz Von Erich and Ed McLemore took the booking office out of Houston, which was owned by Morris Siegel, and Paul Boesch was Morris Siegel's right-hand man. And I came in and helped Fritz switch the booking office. And I think there was always a little bit of resentment towards me. Not a lot. Most of it was directed towards Fritz, but because I was with Fritz, some of that heat came to me. But I would say Paul and I, we had a decent relationship. Sometimes it was great and sometimes it was horrible.
Speaking of Fritz Von Erich, how did you wind up actually meeting him for the very first time?
In Detroit, when George Steele was wrestling as the student, Fritz Von Erich would come into Detroit, and Fritz, for many years, was the bad guy, the big hated bad guy. But when he came back to Detroit, they put him with George Steele and I, and he became a big fan favorite. And he told me, he said, someday I'm going to have a territory, and when I do, I'd sure like for you to come and help me, run my business and present talent for me.
Right.
So 2 or 3 years went by, and when I was in Amarillo wrestling, he came through Amarillo to wrestle me because it was claw against the claw, because he was really over with the head claw and I had the eye claw. It was a perfect match.
Right.
And he asked me, said, "Are you ready to make a move? Come to Dallas." Ed McLemore and I are in the process of trying to win the booking office out of Houston and bring it to Dallas. He said, "If you come to Dallas, you'll have a lifetime job and you could help me run the business there." Because he had known me from Detroit. He knew I had ideas. He knew I knew how to develop talent. So, I was I had a good thing going with him.
What were your initial impressions of him? Did you like the guy?
Fritz and I had a very peculiar relationship for over 25 years. I was his booker, I was his matchmaker, I was his TV producer, I was his advisor. I was many things, but I don't think I was ever a friend. I don't think we could ever call each other friends. We were completely different. Fritz was a guy that he was happy if he was out playing with his cows or driving his tractors or shooting quail or dove or going deer hunting or going wild hog hunting. Me being an inner city kid, those things did not interest me. And the only thing him and I had in common was our love for wrestling and the way we made our living. Other than that, him and I, we were complete at the other end of the spectrum. But all in all, we worked well together for over 25 years.
Your very first run with Fritz, how did that end?
The very first run with Fritz, I was with Carl Von Brunner and Al Costello. And as I said, I had had a problem with Paul because I was the guy that helped Fritz take the booking office. So the first time we drew a decent house where I should have been paid, Carl Von Brunner and Al Costello got $150. And I got mine, and I got $75. I went to Paul Bosch and I said, "Hey, I get to say that my talent gets, and I expect to be paid $150. And he said to me, "Well, if you were anything other than a manager, maybe I'd consider paying you that." When he did, I smacked him right across his face.
Fritz?
No, Paul Bosch.
Okay, yeah, Paul.
And I left.
Right.
And I was called to Fritz's office. And Fritz, Danny Pletches, probably Ed McLemore, and they're all upset with me. "Why did you leave Houston? Why did you smack Paul Bosch? You can't do things like that." And I said, "Hey, you two guys, fuck Paul Bosch out of his booking office.
Right.
And now you're worried about me smacking him because he didn't pay me?
Huh.
You can all go fuck yourself. I'm out of here." And I left.
Right. How much of a student of the business had you become by this point?
I was well entrenched.
Okay. Was there anyone you saw up to this point in your career that you knew would make it big?
I knew George Animal Steel was going to be something really special.
Right.
I knew that. I knew that for sure.
Speaking of George Steele, what was he like outside the ring from back then?
The same in many ways. I mean, he didn't need turnbuckles and
Right.
things, but George, he was a football coach, school teacher, a football player, amateur wrestler. You know, he was your typical jock. That was him.
How did the Great Kabuki come about?
I was traveled through Asia quite a bit with Jim Barnett when I was in Australia. Each year we would do a tour of Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Bali, Macau, and Hong Kong. And we flew exclusively on Cathay Pacific. And I saw a pictorial of a Kabuki dancer in a long red wig and a devil's mask and a skirt and nunchucks. And I was always a big fan of Bruce Lee's and Sonny Chiba. I really liked the martial arts. And I always said if I could find a guy that could do the martial arts and also do catch-as-catch-can wrestling, it'd be another way to present a Japanese guy. Because you got to remember, at the time of the Kabuki, it used to be Japanese was enough after the war. You know, they hated Japanese guy. They'd drill the salt and they would do the bow and they would do the Pearl Harbor attack. But that era was over. We were all had Hondas. We were walking around with Walkmans. We had Seiko watches. I mean, the animosity to Japan was gone. But I knew if I could find a Japanese guy that could do the martial arts and do the wrestling and present him as a Kabuki with the mystery of the Kabuki and the violence of the samurai, then I would have a way to present a guy that the people would take time to look at, rather than just say, well, he's from the land of the rising sun, here's a Japanese guy, you're supposed to hate him. I developed Kabuki as not so much as a Japanese guy, I presented him as an attraction, and he got over unbelievable. I mean, he really, really got over big time.
What was he like outside the ring?
Very humble, very nice guy. Had been around for 12, 13 years. Had wrestled as Takachiya, had wrestled as Mira, had basically been your middle of the card, get over guy. Had really had very little success, not because of a lack of ability, but just because the thing with the Japanese and Americans, you know, it wasn't that hatred was gone. It was like the Germans at one time, if you were Hans Smith or Walter Von Erich or Fritz Von Erich, you know, you walk around, you give the zing how, oh, you're a bad guy.
Right.
But though that was all over by then, and I just needed to find a new way to present an Asian guy. And when I saw the pictorial on Cathay Pacific, I said, that's the way to do it. Now, it took me a long time to find the guy that I wanted to do it with, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Memories of the matches with Jimmy Valiant and Kabuki?
Oh, the easiest money I ever made. That was the greatest time I ever had in my life. 7-8 minutes of pandemonium every night.
Right.
It was the greatest time. Had nothing but a good time. Loved Jimmy Valiant to death. He's a Chicago boy too. So him and I, we really enjoyed each other. And the Kabuki and him, I mean, they had some of the greatest matches in the whole world.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.